There we go. Welcome to the Choose on Purpose podcast, where leaders live with intention. I am your host, Becky Plautz, and I'm super excited that I have Marinda Freeman here with me. Hi, Marinda.
Hello, delighted to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Super excited to have you share and dive deeper with you as I've been into Marinda's book, which is called Everything is an Event, which I see in the background for her as well. And I'm loving that. But something that I really loved and stood out for me about your work was that you don't just see events as the logistics, you like the to-do list and all of that. You really see them as intentional experiences that really shape connection, energy, and memory. And as a photographer, that is really what drew me in to your process, your book, your experience. And that's really kind of where I'd love to dive in and start. So, how would you like to introduce yourself, Marinda? Tell us a little bit about you before we dive in too deep.
Okay, well, I have been an event designer, planner, and producer of events of all kinds. You name it, I've probably done more than one of them for over 40 years. And after 10 years, I was heading to produce a very large event, and I said to myself, what if I could produce events from a more spiritual standpoint? What are these spiritual, universal principles that are always operating? Sort of like gravity. We don't talk about gravity very often, but it is always operating. So over 5 years, I used two events, this very large event for thousands of people, and another one that was a community for hundreds, that I grew both of them over 5 years to my laboratory to discover, explore, and prove the principles to myself. And I've been teaching them to my clients and in classes for 30 years. And then last year published my book, Everything is an Event, because I think everything is an event. This is an event right now. And that
Yeah.
we can think differently about how we approach events. And that with the shift to publishing my book, I have also shifted to not producing events, but consulting, teaching, and speaking about really how we think about events. The first thing is really that every event is to create connection and community. Why else would we gather? And that if remember that is the core of every gathering, coffee, a meeting, a podcast, a big celebration, a milestone birthday, whatever, or a nonprofit gala, everything is bringing people together to connect and create community. And by remembering that, I think that then we start with the heart of what we do to
Mm,
bring people together rather than the logistics. The logistics are afterwards.
yeah. Yeah, which is right. I love the shift in that and like the understanding of that. And that's been something really cool. I feel like I've known that within me. Like I'm an experience driven person. And my being a photographer for 15 years professionally, I've been a photographer my whole life, but really capturing those moments and having those memories. So, I've felt that. So when I met you and started talking to you and hearing like the spiritual side of how you bring these principles out in your book, I immediately was like, I'm going to get your book. So if you're like, well, where do I get it? Of course, you can go find it on Amazon. Um, do you have a website that you have it on as well? Or,
I do, marindafreeman.com. We keep it simple. And
yeah.
I say I'm Marinda from Marin. I live in Marin County, California, so that people can remember my name is Marinda, not all those other incarnations of lovely names and people. So, uh,
Yeah, I love
yeah,
that. So if you're thinking about an event, which if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I'm working on my second masquerade event. And that was it.
right.
How we ended our conversation was like, Marinda, I'm going to get your book. I have a masquerade I'm planning right now, and I want to know, how we can do it better than the first time. So that's definitely been in motion. So anyone that's listening that is planning any kind of event, even if it's a dinner party, her book breaks down like
Right,
the thought process. It's so beautiful.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it
So,
is about how you think before you take action. And really, that's why I have a whole chapter on mantras, because so many people get overwhelmed and just buried in their conversation of I can't do this or I'm overwhelmed or all of those thoughts going on. Well, how can
yeah.
you think clearly with that? You cannot. So mantras are actually a spiritual practice, but I use them in events because these principles are how to create thoughts and ideas and manifest them as an event. But to make sure that we stay grounded, I love, it will all get done is one of the mantras I've used for years because by saying that, I become more calm, grounded, and present. And in being present, we can think clearly and we can move forward in a way that is orderly fashion that you can't do when you're run by the conversations of overwhelm in your head. So first
Yeah.
is the requirement to observe the thoughts in your head, not just get run by them. So that is definitely a spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And okay, so let's start with, and I think you touched on it, but I'm going to get really clear about this question so that our listeners are like, okay, right there with, in case I'm in my head about your book that I've been into. So, what does it really mean to you when you say everything is an event? Like, how does the shift, how does that shift the way that we do everyday life with people, like a dinner party? Is that about the connection piece you were touching on?
Well, with every event or any event, you start with exactly what you talk about is purpose. Why are you doing it? And so that you have to have clarity about that. And I find that many times people have an idea of what the purpose is, but it's not really the purpose. Now, many nonprofits say, oh, we're having a fundraiser, we need to raise money. And I'm like, well, that's great, but that's not the purpose. Why? You can't invite money to a party, you
I
invite
love that.
people. So it's
Mhm.
about building connections and community because people can give way more than just money when they feel inspired and connected to the organization. But even a dinner party, the purpose is to bring your friends or family together to connect, converse, share. And when we break bread with each other, our energetic systems become connected and entangled with each other, and we can feel that. But the other part of the purpose of understanding that every event is about creating connection community is that by preparing for a dinner party, and I believe that I set the table the day before. And I wanted to have be beautiful with flowers and china and crystal, gorgeous table. It's dressed up, and that means I don't have to get dressed up. That's my personal role. But what
Take
does
that
it
pressure off.
say? It says to everyone that comes, I thought about you. I prepared for you. I'm thrilled that you're here. That's the intangible message that you are giving when you prepare and set up for a beautiful evening with your friends or family.
Yeah. What, okay, so talking about the clarity of purpose being really that foundation, um, what happens if we skip that step in events or in life without the clarity of purpose?
Well, that's a good question because most event planners and people skip the first steps of planning, which is really defining what are the intangible things that
Hmm.
you build the foundation on. It's like building a house. You need a foundation before you can start building the walls. So the walls are the logistics. The foundation is the purpose. Why are you doing this? Remembering that every event is about creating connection and community. And then the other thing that you're building is what is the experience that guests will have? Now, that is not things, those are qualities,
Hmm.
connection, welcoming, love, pleasing, harmony, flow, joy. Those are also spiritual qualities, but all of those things come from our heart. And if we start from our heart with knowing what we want our guests to experience, what we want to experience, we become that broadcasting system of that welcoming presence and joy that I get excited when I have friends come for dinner. So I'm already joyful that I know we're going to have a fun time. Fun is the energy of attraction. And people are going to, any event, they're going to talk about their experience, not how the table was arranged or even the beautiful flowers. As Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you did. People will forget what you said, but people will not forget how you made them feel.
Yeah. I love that. I just had to make a note. Fun is the energy of attraction. I love that because I always have said if it's not fun, I'm not going, or, I need to find a way to make something fun in order for me to really be more authentic and bring energy. And so I love that. Fun is the energy of attraction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a party and you walked in the door and you said to yourself, oh, wow, this is fun?
You know, yeah.
Has that happened to you? Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Was there a sign at the door that said that? No.
Yeah. Fun this way.
Yeah. It was you were reading the energy. And
Yeah.
that's where I say I call it an energy bubble that we walk into, that you can design by being clear about writing down what are the qualities that and you want your guests to experience. And that is a foundation because that is what the guests are going to talk about. Oh my gosh, I just made the best friends tonight, or I just was so inspired by what this organization is doing, or it was just so much fun tonight. Let's do it again. All of those kinds of things are just the underlying emotion and experience that the guests have that we can design that with intention. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And one of your principles is that what we focus on increases, which I love this principle in my life. But how does intention actually shape the outcome of the
Well, if
experiences?
you're focused, if you focus on your purpose and your intention, I say when you focus on your in attention, when you focus your intention with attention and clarity of purpose, you can manifest the desired result. So
Hmm.
that is what's really underlying every part of what you're doing. And yes, what you focus on increases. So if you're focusing on having a joyful evening of fun with your friends, then that is what's going to grow because every detail and aspect of the planning that you do is coherent with that and you're totally remembering that always. Is this always supporting my desire for more fun and connection with my friends and whatever the intention is? And by doing that, you will grow that. And that's how events grow too. If you do
Yeah.
an event every year and you have the intention that you want this to be so much fun and have everyone come together and celebrate whatever all those qualities are, and you focus on that, that is what grows. And
Hmm.
so you'll see that just even with your masquerade party by having greater clarity about your intention for the purpose and qualities of the event, is that that is going to result in even greater fun and connection with those that attend. And, I say when you have fun and create community, the memories will follow, the money will follow, the buzz will follow. It builds. So by focusing on having fun and creating community connection, that grows the event because that's an energy that you're growing that people will experience and feel and respond like, oh my gosh, this was even more fun than last year, and I can't hardly wait to do it again next year.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love how the principles build on each other and they really create that momentum. And like you said, as energy, that's building up one thing at a
Yeah.
time that is kind of that's why your book with having those step-by-step guide, it's like how can you go wrong when you have these pieces in place, especially the first part, they all kind of click into place once we have the clarity of purpose, and then we can really see What are those details by knowing what the intention is and having a full purpose planned out
Mhm.
and then where the energy is going.
Exactly. My personal motto is if you're not having fun, you're wasting time. So you've got to bring that,
That's true.
what all those qualities that you want your guests to experience is what you bring with you for every aspect of the planning that you go through. And that
Mhm.
is really a thought process to remember. And that, yes, there are other processes because I love planning ahead. Number one, you know, there is no reason to wait till the last minute. If you're planning a big event, I say there's a reason gestation is 9 months. You want 9, 10 months to be planning, so you're not planning at the last minute, which is so not necessary. And this way, you can, in an orderly fashion, plan every piece of the event that you want to have happen. And if you have an idea for something to add, you have the time to do that. You're not scrambling at the last minute, which is
Yeah,
just not a recipe for success.
right. Yeah, it brings chaos. And that's an energy, right? That,
Right. And then you're bringing chaos, now not the best
yeah.
approach for people to experience.
Yes, exactly. And people feel that because it is an energy, we feel that when we like just like the fun, your question about like did I know that it was fun when I went to an event, and it's that energy reading that in the room and really feeling into that. It's a felt experience.
Yes. Yes.
So,
That's why I call it the atmosphere or energy bubble that people walk into. That does not have to be by chance. It can be designed with clear intention. And isn't that a great way to manifest your vision that you have for the experience of your guests?
right.
That you can actually do that. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it helps, take away all the guesswork in the fact that, I mean, things are going to happen. Um, and we can prepare, for the unplanned things to be occurring along the way,
Oh, absolutely. Now there
those
is a
unexpected.
process. I do outline it in my book. I have a free event checklist on my website, which sort of lists every aspect to like, you can go through and think, do I have to add all of these things in? What do I need? But
Yeah,
that also the biggest trick to removing overwhelm is to write everything down. You have to write down the qualities, the experience, the purpose. That's the foundation. And then when you start to confirm the different aspects of the event, there are tabs in your computer, but there are also tabs in a binder. It's a physical event. You want a physical binder to be able to access everything. And then to bring everything together is to create what I call an event timeline, which looks like just what things are happening, but it's really how to think about the event. So you list everything. So for your big masquerade, you've got time before the event where you have to go pick up this, so you ordered that and it's got to get delivered and all of these things, all of that, and then set up at the event. Who's involved, their names, their phone numbers, everything is on one document and then listing everything that happens during the event, and then break down and load out. But what this does is give you an opportunity to review everything in your mind. When I teach my clients to time travel, you travel to the date, time, place. For a big event, I will have the event timeline and I will have a floor plan. And I envision myself standing in the space and walking through the space. Is that an ease of flow? Can I move through the space easily? And then looking through the timing, how things unfold. Is there an ease and flow to the timing through the event? All of this is how to think about it. And you do this over and over again. This is not a one-time thing. But by doing this, I am even more clearly imagining this event and the experience the guests will have, that I get super excited because I know it's going to be just amazing.
Yeah.
because they've done all of the foundational work.
Can you talk a little bit more about being aware of the flow um, when designing an event and how maybe we can apply that to how we lead our lives or our businesses?
Ah, good question. Applying the flow to our lives and business. Well, I always claim ease, number one, for every event and in my life. Why not?
I love it. Claim
So
it.
if you have that intention of ease,
Mhm.
you're claiming that as your experience. So flow is like three different aspects of flow. Flow through the space. I have a 2-minute exercise in my book that's called Looking Through the Eyes of the Guests, of like imagining yourself in the space and walking through the space as the guest. Let's say it's at your home and you're walking through, and all of a sudden there's a couch in the way or a chair in the way, and you can't get to the other side of the room. That is not good flow. And so uh, that is flow through the space. So ease of moving through the space. I have friends that went to an event at a hotel and they said, "Oh my God, if you were here, you would have been telling them this is no good because you can't get around through the room with the tables and chairs."
You're
So
getting
that's
through to them, Marinda. You're getting through to them.
so funny. But then there's also flow through the timing of the event. So considering how things unfold from welcoming guests as they come, that's so important to have people welcoming guests because that's your first touch with everyone that shows up. And then exactly what else happens during the event, if there's food and when it's served, or dessert, if there's talks, when that is, any announcement. Is there an ease of that flow? And is
Mhm.
there space to allow people to sit at their tables and connect with each other? Or you're like boom, boom, boom with, event program from the stage that gives no time for people to connect with each other, which is again the point of bringing everyone together. And then there is a flow of the and ease of the planning process itself, which is happening over time. So all of those are aspects of flow. And can we apply that to our lives? Yes. How we arrange our lives, how we arrange our days, so that there's time and space for us to pause as well as for doing the work that we do. And creating time to get together with friends for dinner or whatever, coffee. All of those are part of the ease of flow in our lives. And so I think all of those are the part of the same thing.
Yeah. This is what I love about your book and talking about principles and how we can they're just it's so tangible between life and business and specifically, experiences and events and that connection point. So that's why I keep bringing it like, okay, tell us how we relate this to life because you do talk about principles. It's easy for us to kind of make those connection points and how they relate. So I
Yeah.
love that because I think about even like you said, like planning our days, how many times are people, myself included, that's one of the things that I'm always practicing is how to give myself, even 15 minutes between meetings or interviews or the next thing so that I do have reflection, pausing, self-care, like those pieces that same thing with an event, where are those points of pausing and planning that can bring more ease into the process.
Right. I think for any event, even if it's just a dinner party at home, you want everything done 30 minutes in advance so you have time to pause. If you need to change your clothes or do whatever, fix your makeup, you have time and space to do that. And you plan a menu that isn't everything last minute that you have to do in the kitchen because I firmly believe that if you're inviting friends to come over, you want to spend time with them, not be like flipping things around in the kitchen at the last minute. So you can
Yeah.
design the menu to support that as well, of having ease and greater time to spend with your guests.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask about creating connection a little bit too. So, you've talked about how connection and community, can really be a fine point of doing events, which I totally agree with. So, what makes people feel truly connected versus, what you said, like being present? What's the difference there?
Well, I think that science explains that in a way that is, different language than I say, but neuroscience proves that when we come together with each other, our energy, our brains are entrained, our energetic systems are not just connected, they're entangled, and they've done scientific like, demonstrations of that, proving it. It's not just woo-woo making this up.
Yeah.
That's why I like ION's Institute of Noetic Science, which is the science of knowing, and was started by Edgar Mitchell over 30 years ago when he had a window seat coming back from the moon and had an experience just like the astronauts this week had of oneness, of seeing that blue-green jewel in black space. It's just one little Earth ship, spaceship that we are all on. And so to remember that we are all connected, we are already one. Oneness is everywhere. And that if we start there, some people may have forgotten who they are, but we can remember. I like to quote Mother Teresa. She said, "There goes another child of God in a very interesting disguise."
I haven't heard that one.
So that we can have compassion for people that have forgotten who they are, and to remember that, everyone is a light. I love that science proves that every cell in our body has biophotons, which emit light. That is how they communicate with each other.
Mm,
But that's also that we are beings of light. We don't have to do anything to make that happen. We are already it. So I think our bigger job as a host or in events or in our life is to be that light. We don't have to
mm,
go somewhere and do something to make that happen. We are already that. And that by doing that, we encourage others to remember and be their light. And I don't know if one of my favorite writers is Annie Lamott.
mm.
It lives in Marin County, but she's written so many things, and I'm now following her on Substack. And recently, she wrote an article about how a lighthouse doesn't run around trying to find the boats.
Mm,
It stays in one place and shines the light. And I think that that is a reminder for all of us, especially in the world today, to shine our light and be that light and to be that
mm,
remembering for people that we are all connected. There is nothing we have to do. We are already connected.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for diving
yeah,
into truly being connected versus just being present, and and you can just hear your passion and your love for
yeah.
finding the deeper meaning behind all of the events and the gatherings that you've brought together. Like so beautiful.
Thank you. Well, it's something I've been a spiritual counselor and teacher for over 25 years, but a spiritual student my whole life. And I believe that we are, I love that science proves and, quantum physics shows how we are energetically connected. So science just begins to prove what the sages have known for ages to remind us of who we truly are and how we are connected. And I think that the pandemic, um, a lot of people, I would say, forgot how to connect with each other.
Yeah.
And that any opportunity that any of us have to bring people together, whether it's a coffee, a dinner, a party, whatever, is a way to help them remember and become more comfortable with connecting with each other, which is really the point of why we're here, you know?
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I was just thinking too, through this conversation about how much so I have three children, and I really talk about, there was a book, The Coffee Bean. It's like the smallest little book, um, but John something is the author. Anyway, I use this analogy about, really being the energy that comes into the room and thinking more about how the intention of how when I or encouraging my children to just walk into the room with the energy that they want to emanate to people and be that light, which we're talking about, and how important that is, and just thinking about like energy and being in an atmosphere. You use that word, in your book too. So that's one of the things that I impress upon my children all the time is just like, the energy that we bring in a room is really important. And especially as someone that loves to gather people and remind people of who they are and how important that is, I'm thinking about the energy and the atmosphere. So, thinking about that, how do you intentionally build an atmosphere that people feel and not just attend your event or your coffee date or what have you? What would you say about that?
Well, I would say it calls for practice, but if, every spiritual uh, thing is a practice, but it's
Yeah.
also, we get to ground it. Um, so I have a drawing in my book of what I created as the energy bubble. Because if we write down those qualities, we then, I think it's I forget what page it's on, I can tell you. It's near the beginning. It is page 21.
Hmm.
Um, it really is a way for us to envision and to ground those qualities into what we're planning. And I know that sounds esoteric, perhaps, but when you write it down, this is my biggest message for because I find that people overwhelmed because they try and keep everything in their head. But
Right.
if you write it down, it's more concrete. And when I do my event timeline, I will write the purpose and the qualities at the top of the event timeline so that it becomes a reminder not just to me, but to everyone that I'm sharing that with that needs to know how everything is unfolding. So that intention and our thoughts are powerful. Thought creates that spiritual principle. So that if we're in overwhelm, that creates one thing. If we have clarity, we've calmed our mind with perhaps a mantra or two. I love Thich Nhat Hanh, his book, Peace is Every Step.
Mm.
So by focusing and being present, so like he says, you can meditate doing the dishes by focusing just on the dishes. I'm a
Yeah.
chef and have taught cooking classes for decades, and I believe cooking is a meditation. You have to be present. You can't be running away somewhere or thinking something. You have to be present and focused on what you're doing. And that's a meditation. I don't think you have to just sit in one place to be meditating. So,
Hmm.
in some way, taking that same kind of focus of practice is to focus on why are we doing this? What is the purpose? What is the experience and the qualities I want my guests to have? And remembering that everything is about creating connection and community. That's your foundation that you're constantly referring every other aspect of the actions that you take. Is it coherent to this foundation of these
Yeah.
qualities and intention? And by doing that, that's a practice of coming back. I call it the macro and the micro, holding the big picture, coming back to the details, big picture details, because, it's the little details that people will remember of how
Mm.
they're welcomed. Uh, sometimes it's a surprise during the event that is brings people more joy and fun. But it is always with the intention of having clarity of intention, and that's a practice of thinking. And I have a sign, or actually it was a card my aunt gave me years ago that I can't pull it up right now, but it says you're designed for living. It's woven,
Mm.
woven, 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 woven by the pattern of your thoughts.
Mm.
And I think it's the same thing. You're designed for events. It's woven, 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 woven by the patterns of your thoughts. So one of my,
Tapestry.
yeah, that's right.
You talk about the tapestry in the
Yeah,
book.
well, hold the tapestry, weave the threads is one of the mantras I have because you're holding the big picture and at the same time weaving those threads together to be coherent into one
Hmm.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that visual for that. And talking about peace, you teach that order, creates more peace, right? And
Yes,
so thinking
yes.
about that, how does structure, I love structure. So how does structure actually support, the creativity rather than limiting it? Because some people would argue that structure limits.
Well, I believe the principle is order creates greater calm and peace of mind. Only if you're calm and present can you think clearly and creatively. Because if you're scattered, you're all over the place and you cannot think creatively or clearly. And
Yeah.
I believe that, it starts with that. My tech guy said I'm the most organized person he's ever met, so that's great to know. So,
Organize those
yes,
files, Marinda.
we're sisters, honey, on that category for sure. So, yes, because orderly thinking is really what you're accomplishing by
Yeah.
writing everything down, by thinking through everything. The event timeline is not made to do one time. You review it over and over. It's a way to think about how everything unfolds and imagine being at the event, how everything unfolds, so that by the time you get to the event itself, you're like the orchestra conductor. You know the music so well. You don't even need to look at the music, but you do have that on your clipboard. And you allow, because you know it so well, you allow life to unfold.
Mm.
Because you have double checked with everyone, you have made sure everyone knows what happened when, that needs to know, whether it's a caterer, whoever it is, staff. And then you can let go and allow life to unfold. And if something arises, I call it fun. It's creative problem solving on site. It's not a disaster. Nothing's a disaster. That's one of my mantras. It's all unfolding perfectly. And that does not mean perfection. It means that whatever it is perfect, which shifts
Mm.
us from thinking, oh my gosh, I have to fix this, to no, it's all unfolding perfectly. It's perfect just as it is. And if there is something that we get to creatively problem solve on site, that's life. That's fun.
Yeah, creative problem solving. I love that. And something you said earlier too about the detail of writing the purpose and mission um, on the top so that everyone can see that. I think that's a really important detail too for people to understand when we're bringing them together, like what is the collective purpose? Because it gives them that sense of, ooh, I was thought of. I have a purpose in that. I play a role in this bigger impact that's happening. So I wanted to point out how much I loved that detail of like even just having it on the top. So like anyone that sees it, they know they're playing a role in something bigger than a to-do, maybe.
Right. Yes. Well, and by including everyone that is involved in the planning and the production of the event, you want to make sure everyone's thinking in the same direction and holding the same intention, because by doing that, you're creating an even more successful atmosphere that all the guests will experience because everyone is clear, there's clarity of what you're creating. And by knowing that, you're all heading in the same direction, which makes it so much more powerful.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to thinking about like those smaller details and how much impact comes from the
Right,
micro and the macro, like you were saying, So
right.
is there what are some overlooked details that completely change an experience?
Ah, good question. Well, one that initially came to mind is the fact that one of the first things when I started looking at what were the principles that are always operating, I latched on to, I really put it in my mantras, but there is no unimportant person or part to the whole. And that by having that as a guiding perspective, I did a big event that was for, 2,500 guests each night for 2 nights in San Francisco that I grew over 5 years to 3 nights in San Francisco and two in LA. And I had 20 managers and 100 volunteers. And I wanted to make sure that everyone knew how appreciated they were, and including all the chefs that had been recruited for the different evenings to provide food. And I had one chef say he'd never felt so taken care of at an event. So by having that clarity of intention, that got infused to everyone because of the appreciation I was spreading to everyone that was participating, whether they got paid or they were a volunteer. That appreciation is the biggest payment ever. And that by remembering that, that's how we bring other people in to really want to support whatever is going to unfold. I don't know if
Mm.
that answered the question, but
Yeah, and what I hear is how important it is to understand like the connection begins with us. Like as the host, as the person that's, pushing the vision forward, in your case the planner, it does begin with you. That energy, that connection point
yes,
begins with
right.
you. Yeah.
Correct.
And how
Yeah, because
powerful that
everybody's going to feel that. As I say, we're broadcasting and receiving systems. And so what we broadcast is what gets received by everybody else and spread.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking about how you were saying, like how you think comes before what we create. How would you say that mindset shapes the success of the event and experience? How would you say that?
How would I say it? The mindset shift?
Yeah, how does the mindset shape the success of the event and the experience?
Well, that is the whole point of event planning. I mean, when I say everything is an event, that is a mindset. Because what I'm
Yeah, it's a
really saying,
lifestyle. I think about that, Marinda. It's a lifestyle to think that way, to
yes,
understand.
well, it's actually principle. It's how you think before you take action, but how you think, thought creates. So, so many people are not aware of their thinking. And I
Right.
say, okay, then start by putting a little observer on your shoulder and watch everything, every word that goes out of your mouth, because every word you speak is concrete energy going out in the universe to come back to you at some point. Timing is
Ooh.
not specific. So when you say something you don't want to create, then say cancel, cancel. So the more you can notice everything you say, eventually you can back up to noticing what your thoughts are, because your thinking
Mm.
is what creates every emotion in your body. Thinking, it starts with a thought and then becomes energy. Emotion is energy. So, it's a practice to start to become the observer of your thoughts. I don't know if you've ever read that book by Jill Bolte Taylor called My Stroke of Insight. She also did a
Mhm.
TEDx talk. She was a brain scientist and she had a stroke and she lost her left brain. Her left brain went offline and she was in her right brain only and was in oneness. Everything else disappeared. It was just all one. Everything, even trying to look at this business card to call for help, it dissolved into pixels. And it took her 8 years to bring her left brain back online. But in doing that, she became a clear observer of her left brain, which is a seek and find mechanism. I mean, you decide want to buy a blue car, all of a sudden you see them everywhere. Okay, so by doing that, she became the observer of her left brain. And it, wants to sell you the movie and the popcorn and the story. And she would say, no, I'm not going there. Because we do have control over our thoughts, but we have to become the observer of them first. And by doing that, we become much more powerful on what we want to create rather than it being
Mm.
happenstance, whether it's an event or something in our lives. Frankly, these events that I have in my book are the same principles to use to manifest anything in your life, not just events, but it's easier to discuss them in the domain of events to explain how to manifest a vision. But I've used them in my life as well to manifest many things.
Yeah, and what I love about it is that it's your life experience. You know, being an event planner, it's how you can put it through the perspective to be able to more easily share or more cohesively maybe share. I don't know about easy, but it's your life experience that you've put through this book to be able to share the principles and continue to shine your light with what you've learned from
Mhm.
living it.
Yeah.
I love that. I think I've heard of that woman's story, Jill, that you were talking about.
Jill Bolte Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar.
Yeah. She
Maybe
did
I
a
maybe I've
TEDx
did the
talk
TED
years
Talk.
ago. Yeah.
It's probably more likely that I've watched her TED Talk because I love
Yeah,
them.
probably. Her
Yeah.
book describes it a little bit more. That's why I really liked reading it. But I
Okay.
got it after watching her TED Talk. This is a long time ago. But,
Yeah.
so many authors are writing about this same thing using different language. Eckhart Tolle with A New Earth explains it with a different language. I think all of the different languages of speaking about these things from science and spirituality and all these aspects, it's like a faceted crystal. And these different languages of way of saying the same thing help us understand it and a better way to ground it within ourselves than just hearing it one way. And I think that we all want to be open to learning more in different ways so that we come up with greater understanding about who we are and how we are express ourselves and bring connection with others because isn't that why we're here?
That's why I'm here. I can tell you that. Connection, connection,
Yay!
connection. Yeah.
Yes.
And okay, so one of the last questions that I was really like, okay, I want to dive in just a little bit deeper on this is the time travel vision. Because this is where I feel like personally, um, I'm not like really a visualization kind of person, which is funny because I'm a photographer. Like maybe that's because I need the tangible picture. I need the tangible picture in front of me. Like I need to see it to capture it. Um, but I love your idea of the time traveling. And so thinking about listeners, can you walk us through how someone can design an experience by starting with the end feeling?
Starting with the
The end
feeling.
feeling? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it builds over time. That's why you don't want to plan things at the last minute because if you have, as I say, you start with the foundation of creating and clarifying why are you having this? What is the purpose? What is the experience you want your guest to have? Or qualities, not things. And then understanding that creating connection community runs through all of that. That's the foundation. But then you start building this. If you people are coming for dinner, it would be good if you have tables and chairs to start with. Maybe some beautiful tablecloths. I have a rule of one color tablecloth in the room creates greater calm for the space. If it's an auditorium and you're having people listen, create the chairs curved because then people can see each other for more
Mm.
connection. So all of these things are subtle, but there are ways to support the intention that underlies. Now, if you're having people for dinner, they need flatware and plates and glassware, all of those things. And even simple centerpieces. It doesn't have to be fancy or expensive. It can be something that's seasonal. But when you put them on many tables, it has a big impact. So one little thing impacts by multiples. So by adding up all those pieces that you have built, it's sort of like building a house. You put all those together, you've added up all of those things that you've needed, and so you can imagine now what is that table going to look like because you have gotten the tables and chairs and the tablecloth and the flatware and the centerpieces. So you know what that's going to look like. You can envision that now that you have got it all ordered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a matter of in the time travel. I mean, I used to have a conversation with a friend of mine that uh, would do decor for events. And she said, when you envision an event, where do you stand? And I thought, I usually stand in the middle of the room. She goes, I always stand at the entrance. So, where can you envision yourself? So, yes, I will envision myself walking in through the space. Is there a welcoming table? Do I have people standing there welcoming? As I walk through the space, is there easy to move through the flow? I've got a floor plan. I have the timing. I am walking through it like I am there. I mean, it's just sort of like Star Trek. We can envision the future, but we've been creating it for weeks and months, perhaps. Depends on how long, if it's just one dinner table, that's easier, but set it up the day before. Nothing last minute. And by doing that, what for me, I get more excited because, oh my God, it's going to look beautiful. And beauty is the highest vibration, and people feel that.
Yeah.
And if they, feel welcomed the moment they arrive, that you've got people say, oh, I'm so delighted you're here. I'm so glad we're getting together. All of that is part of building that bubble that they experience and that you get to experience too. It's not something that's just for your guests. It's what you're creating for yourself as well as everyone else. And the clarity, how you envision in the mind is the first step. I have my quote, to see a thing clearly in the mind makes it begin to take form. And so that's the practice. And, if you know your house, I bet you can walk through the rooms in your house in your mind, right? It's the same
Yeah.
thing. And my exercise of looking through the eyes of the guests, you're standing outside your front door. Oh, you see a beautiful pot of flowers welcoming you. You get welcomed by the host. The host, introduces you. People, you see how you can get through the space, or there's a chair in the way to get outside, or whatever. But that envisioning is something we can do in our own rooms. And each room you walk into has a feeling already. And if there is order, it's like, have you ever been to a spa? I bet the calmness is felt by the neutral space, the fountain, the candle. Doesn't that already feel relaxing? That space has been created for that experience. So that's the thing we do in decorating our homes, is creating a warm environment for our family and friends. So that's the same thing we do with events. We want things to be orderly and beautiful and feel comfortable. People feel at ease when they walk in, they feel at home. That is a feeling. Yeah.
I think about how using all the senses, well, I shouldn't say all of them because I'm learning so much more about more senses than we know. But
Yes.
even smell, when you just expressing, when you walk into a spa, I thought about my mom is a former massage therapist, and every time I stepped into her massage office, it was essential oils. You could just smell all the essential oils, and I was like, it has a calming feeling,
Right.
right? Intentionally. Um, so I think about just using the senses more for everyday life, but for an event specifically too, like how can we even bring in smell, like
Right.
when you go into someone's home and it smells like a fresh baked cookie, that's a different feeling than, smelling a cat box or something.
Yeah, not good. Not good.
Yeah. But the intentionality of that, even thinking about how I personally could probably use all of my senses more, thinking about that time travel piece where I have a thought process that it's more challenging for me, right? Where I pointed that out right away. It's like, oh, it's challenging for me, but that's just a thought. Um, so that might be
That
another
is just
way.
a thought.
Yes, that's just a thought. That's a past.
That's not the truth.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So anyone that's listening, that's like, yes, same. We need to challenge those thoughts because yeah, that's a belief that we can challenge.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so that's really helpful. That I love that. Thinking about, more of the senses that go along with that to help with the feeling, having that end feeling and kind of reverse engineering through these
Right.
principles to really know that it builds, like you were saying.
Yeah. Well, even, real estate agents that bake cookies in the kitchen so that when they're showing a house, it smells more like home,
Homey.
right?
Yeah, yeah, more homey. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so wrapping up here, I would love to just ask a question about, for the woman who is listening, who wants to create more intentional experiences in her life or her work. Um, I know it's going to be challenging, but what's one principle she can begin practicing today? Um, Maybe the most important, I'm sure it's probably clarity, but what would you say one principle that she could begin practicing today would be supportive for someone
Well,
that's
I
focused on the
roll several
intention?
up together because I think that, knowing why you're hosting, the purpose, also knowing at the same time it's bringing people to connect and to remember that you're designing an experience. It's
Mm,
not just food and things. You're designing an experience because that's we're experiential beings. And that I do teach classes online, a free workshop every month, and then I have a deeper dive of 6 week master class. They're on my website. Um, and I find even just an hour class like we've discussed today helps people shift their thinking about 180 degrees to remove the stress because the stress is not necessary. Again, it's a thought that can be replaced when you notice it. No. And don't we want to entertain and welcome people from a place where we're relaxed to enjoy the evening that we have created? I mean, that for your big event, it's the same thing. You're doing this because you want to have fun and enjoy with your friends, have a fun evening. And that is really why we want to get together. Even just for coffee
yeah.
is fun to get together with someone and connect, even virtually. The principles remain the same whether we're virtual or in person, doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have loved all of the exploring of how clarity, connection, atmosphere, and attention really shape not only the events that we host, but the lives that we live. Marinda, thank you so much for sharing these principles. Really seeing how it blends the intention and mindset and energy. And I love that you talk about designing, the purpose. Like this is Choose on Purpose podcast, and there's so much intention that goes behind the way that we're choosing to live our lives and
Right.
designing, you know, shows us that events aren't just something that we attend, they're something that we feel. And
Yes.
that's so powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, well, thank you. And I love that you're focused on purpose because that's right up my alley. And yeah, that clarity of purpose is a grounding principle for our lives, let alone any event that we plan. So, I would just leave with the thought is, what are the statements that you hold as truths in your life
Mm,
that you continually want to manifest? So I not as an answer, but to be in the question, because by being in the question, you allow things to open up and unfold. Um, and for me, one of the qualities for myself is integrity. Uh,
mm,
I think it's important to authenticity, integrity. It's important to be who we are, be honestly who we are. But there are many other things that I have as grounding principles for myself personally, so that everybody, if you start to examine your life that way, perhaps opens up new ideas and new thoughts. So,
yeah, absolutely. Keep open to those shifts. I love this so much. Marinda, thank you for joining us on the Choose on Purpose podcast. And I've got the book. I'm excited to come to your next class and sort that out with you. It's on the website you said, marindafreeman.com, correct?
correct. Yes.
For any of the book or the classes to get connected to Marinda. Thank you again. And for our listeners, empower your journey, choose on purpose. And thank you for tuning into the podcast. Get connected to Marinda. And until next week, we'll see you then.
Thank you.